We're ready to dive into the first session of this evening, right? So, the history of a place lies as much in its food as it does in its monuments, in its local culture, in its language, and people. And Literati 2021 opens up to you with captivating aromas, with delicious delicacies, and with cuisines unparalleled. So, this is bound to happen when two Sahitya Academy Award recipients come together to talk about food. Our speaker is a recipient of the Sahitya Academy Award for English Literature, specifically for her novel, Book of Rachel. And she beautifully documents Jewish life in India, and her book, Bene Appetit, Cuisine of Indian Jews, is the highlight of this conversation. Likewise, on the other hand, our moderator happens to be equally passionate about food. I mean, you would know that, right, if you've read her book, History on My Plate. An internationally acclaimed multilingual poet, she's also a recipient of the Sahitya Ratan, as also the Gujarat Sahitya Academy Award 2020 and 2021. So let's get set to witness an intermeshing of culture and cuisine with Esther David in conversation with Lily Swarn. So we're sure waiting for this one and we're all ready to get into it. Lily ma'am, over to you now.
Thank you, Niharika. Thank you very much. So on behalf of CLS, a warm welcome to you, dear Esther David. Immensely honored to meet you, you charming, multifaceted lady. The aura you exude is such an intriguing blend of the fusion of cultures that you so effectively represent. Behind the radiant red bindi is a brilliant and seeking mind, which has given us numerous fascinating books. History points out that your ancestors arrived in India sometime in the 1st or 2nd century when they were shipwrecked in Western India. Bene Israel, meaning sons of Israel, they were also known as Shanivar Telis or Saturday oil pressers, as they observed the Sabbath day. Thank you, ma'am, for sparing your time for us today. Esther. Can you hear us? No, you can't hear? Anshuman, please check. Please check the mic. There you are. So Krishan Chopra, the publisher of HarperCollins India, wrote about your book. If the world of India's Bene Israel community is better known today, much of the credit undoubtedly goes to Esther David. In Bene Appetit, your book, the Sahitya Academy Award winner, takes us on a journey that is as much repast as recounting of the diverse strands of the community here. You said, Esther, and I quote, "It is very conflicting as there is a cross-cultural conflict that we experience. I think we live a very secretive life. You know, the old mezuzah at the door, the Hebrew Bibles, the Jewish artifacts in the house, and faded sepia-tinted photographs of your ancestors." So, Esther, I begin by requesting you to tell me, what was it like growing up as an Indian Bene Israel Jew? Please tell us about your unique identity.
So you want me to talk about what it meant, like growing up as a Jew in India?
Absolutely, Esther. I
Yes,
would love to know. Our viewers would love to know. Yes,
everything
please.
in our lives was like all Indians. The only thing, our names were sort of Jewish, so there was always a connection. And there was every Friday evening, we did the Shabbat prayers. If we didn't do the Shabbat prayers at home, we did them at the synagogue. And for that, the doors would be closed at home. And in the synagogue, the whole community more or less would come together. And we had to cover our heads. And the men wore the kippas, small caps. And the prayers were said in Hebrew. So that's where every day we spoke in English or Gujarati or regional languages all over India. Basically, we spoke our prayers in Hebrew and we knew that's where we were different. If you saw us in the street, you would not guess that we were Jewish. But the minute you saw us at the synagogue or at a festival at home or for Shabbat or anything like that, you would see that we were different in many ways. And we sort of basically, Indian Jews don't openly talk about religion and everything, because it's very difficult to explain the words in a certain way. Like all you can say is, I'm Jewish. And that for many years when I was younger, it used to be a sort of, nobody understood what it meant to be a Jew. Then you had to make
No.
stories. You had to make stories, and you had to say, okay, do you know about the Ten Commandments? And you don't know about Israel and things like that. So that's how people would come to know that we were Jews, and we belonged to a very ancient sort of times. And that is how the whole, but for many many years we lived like Indians, but everything in our life was behind closed doors. So I
Wow.
always like to say, like it's a secret life, and
Yes.
it's a secret life. And we have been leading this sort of secret life for many years, from say a large number of say 40 or 50,000 Jews. We eventually are now about 4,000 with 140 in Ahmedabad, and
Wow.
that is it. And we follow all the festivals, and all the sort of, we have a series of festivals of different types, which we always now that our families live abroad, so we are like a small mini microscopic community.
Yes.
We celebrate everything together at the synagogue. We get together, and except for 2 or 3 festivals, we always also eat together. And that is how it's what it means
Yes.
to be a Jew. But it's very difficult to explain when people say, like my name, Esther. Most people, they find it very difficult to sort of pronounce,
Yes.
and so it gets sort of. So then sometimes I like to say, okay, you can call me Asha Ben or whatever. That's fine.
Really, you do that?
Yes,
That's so sweet. You, it is
yes,
actually a secret life. Must have been a very,
yes,
very different and
yes,
unique childhood. I can
yes,
totally
yes.
understand. So,
And
ma'am,
then
what
it's
urged?
a name. Name starts with E. So how does a name start with an E? So that's how a name starts with an E.
They found that strange. All right.
Yes,
Yes.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I know it was. I must have been a different childhood, and how
Yes.
secretly you kept the
Mm,
identity. So, ma'am, what
mm.
urged you to write this very remarkable book, Bene
Yes.
Appetit? You know, because the
Mm,
Bon Appetit
mm,
has been changed to Bene because Bene being the son of Israel, and it's really remarkable and
mm,
so much put in. What was it
mm,
that triggered this thought in you that I have to write this?
mm. You see, I was basically sort of trying to understand myself through my novels, what it means to be a Jew in India.
Yes,
On one side, we are very Indian in every way, from clothes to regional languages to regional
true.
food to everything. But
Hmm.
during the festivals, when sort of, or in everyday life also, when we the cooking is being done, and I grew up in a joint family earlier. Now it's not so.
Yeah.
There would be a definite way of the food. Like there was a dietary law, and
Yes.
it goes to ancient times, uh, like say when the Jews were in the desert and looking for a homeland, that thou shalt, and they had a lot of cattle with them, and the law was, thou shalt not cook the lamb in its mother's milk, because it's
Mother's
likely,
milk. Wow.
yes, that it's likely that there is sort of a cattle and there is a calf, and you make yogurt, and then you don't realize that what you're cooking is
Yeah.
in this way. So there was a very strict law about it, which we follow to this day. So in a certain way, there is a very strict division between milk dishes and meat dishes, and even I mean, meat cannot basically be cooked in dairy, and
Yes.
if we have dairy, then there has to be 5 hours of difference. And we
Yeah.
can have dairy when we have vegetarian food. So there is a specific rule for everything. Even the way we have to clean things, even the way we have to wash things. I mean, everything is got
Oh,
rules and
oh,
regulations. It's
interesting.
not, and that is where what I'm answering your question again, what it means to be
Yes.
Indian and Jewish. You don't just pick up everything
Right.
that is in the fridge and put it together.
Yes.
There is a
Yes.
strict no to this and a strict yes to that. And in
Yes.
some families, there are very different vessels, dishes for
Separate
meat
for the
and
vegetarian non-veg,
dairy. No, no, dairy
dairy
and
and
meat.
non-veg. Okay.
Yes, with dairy
So
and
thank you.
vegetarian can be had together. Yes,
Okay. Dairy and vegetarian can be had together, but
yes,
if
yes.
you're cooking meat,
Not
it cannot be
yes.
in a dairy. All
There has to
right.
be a 5 hours difference.
Oh,
Even if
five
you
hours
want to,
difference.
even
What
if
an
you want to eat,
enlightening book this will be.
even
Yes,
if you want to eat mithai or anything, you can't, and you have
because
to
that's
wait for
milk.
5 hours. And that's why, to keep our ancestors decided that to keep the children and the family away from a lot of to keep this law,
Okay.
we make specific sweet dishes also, and we eat a lot of fruit as dessert.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And I'm so glad you wrote this book. So now I want the whole world to know, and please share the fascinating journey of traveling for this book to the five widely different
Mm.
pockets of Jews in India and your
Yes.
documentation of their food and how wonderful they
Mm.
adopted their cuisine to the locally available food. And, people in Machilipatnam in Andhra Pradesh, in Kochi, in Kerala,
Yeah.
the Jews
Yeah.
where you are in Ahmedabad, the Jews in
Mm.
Manipur, the Jews in Mizoram. I think it would have
Mm.
been, I mean, a tough task because the languages were different, the people were different. And I read somewhere you saying that when I photographed them, all these people, different people,
Mm.
they became
Mm.
like a kaleidoscope collage of contrasts, yet a
Yes.
common thread bonded them together with their
Yes.
belief in the Jewish tradition and the
Mm.
rites, the rituals, the lifestyle, and the dietary laws. So
Yes.
that must be fascinating. Please share with us how you achieved
Mm.
this remarkable task.
Okay. So while I was writing my novels about Jewish life and the conflict of being Indian and Jewish, that is a
Yes,
cross cultural conflict that I have been experiencing myself.
yes,
So that is the base of all my novels. And during that, as I don't come from a family, my father made a zoo in Ahmedabad and he believed in different things, and we lived a very cosmopolitan life. So I had no religious education. So somewhere in my mid 40s, I started that I have to understand all this much better. And that's my journey.
okay,
That's the beginning of my journey with my novels. And I changed careers from
wonderful.
art to literature. And at
Yes,
that point, while I was writing one of my what you call mega novels with 5 generations of Indian Jews, I had to do a lot of research. And while I was
Ji,
doing the research, I went to the sort of the a place where we had the shipwreck, and that's in
yes,
Alibag in Maharashtra. And
Alibag in
then
Maharashtra.
Maharashtra, yes, and that is
Yes, yes,
where I was staying, and every time I go there, I feel I'm at home. I'm sort of reached home. I'm at home. I have reached somewhere. I know this land. I belong to this land. I feel that
wow.
way
How
after
surreal that
2,000
sounds.
years. Yes.
Wow.
So
Okay.
there I became the Jewish community, and we became very friendly, and sort of they were very sort of they gave me a lot of information. And when
Yes.
they would invite me to their homes, and when I saw the whole landscape, I realized one thing, that sort of there was a very strong what you call the food reminded me of my grandmother, what my grandmother
Oh,
used to make. My
oh,
grandmother used to cook in a similar way, which we had stopped cooking. It had become a sort of mixture of all Indian foods from all the regions, and
yes.
it was very simple, but it was not. It was interesting, the food, but it was not what my grandmother used to cook.
Yes.
So I said that this is very interesting. Even frying an egg was different. So I
Oh,
said, or the way the fish was made, or everything. So I said, and what I discovered, that I discovered already earlier through my novel, when I was writing my novels, was the use of coconut
gee.
milk. How do you keep the dietary law and keep away from dairy? And the
Mhm.
only way which is totally kosher and acceptable is coconut milk. That was
Yes.
decided by our ancestors long, long back, is to use coconut milk as a base to all food, vegetarian, non-vegetarian, dairy, everything, sweets,
Yes.
everything is made with coconut milk. That is the base.
Wonderful. That's
Sometimes,
a great idea. Yes.
this dairy, this becomes so strong that we almost forget that we can use dairy, and we only keep on using coconut milk.
Yeah.
That is how
Yes.
it goes.
And then
So that
Manipur,
is
Mizoram,
no, no,
that
no,
was
no.
how.
I will explain that
All
while I
right.
was
Okay.
in Alibag, I realized
Yeah.
that there was much more to Indian Jewish food.
Okay.
So I included that in Book of Rachel. Each chapter starts with a recipe.
Okay. Great.
Later on, I thought that I should explore more possibilities. Till then, we only knew three communities. That is the Bene
Okay.
Israel. Well, you asked me about the title. You see,
Yes.
Bene. When I didn't Bon Appetit, instead of Bon Appetit, I said Ben, because most of us are Bene Israel, Bene Menash, Bene Ephraim. So I used
Right.
the Bene with
Yes.
appetite,
Correct.
and that
That's
is how.
perfect.
So
Perfect.
I
Mhm.
first we were only three Jewish communities were known: the Bene Israel, the Cochin Jews first, they came before us,
Yes.
then the Bene Israel, and then the Baghdadi Jews. The Cochin Jews came from two areas. One is Middle East and one is Spain.
Okay.
The Baghdadi Jews came from Middle East. So all we knew was the Baghdadi Jews of Calcutta, Cochin
Yes.
Jews, and Ben
Yes.
Israel Jews. Suddenly, I started receiving a lot of clips and information about
Great.
Beni Ephraim Jews, about Andhra
Yeah.
Pradesh, and I was very excited. So that was one thing. And then one of my my family friend's nephew married a Jewish girl from Mizoram. So
Okay.
that's how, and then there were a lot of clips about Bene
The
Menashe
East.
Jews, that is Northeast, Jews of
Yes.
Northeast, traveling back,
So you went
migrating to Israel.
there. Right.
So I
Yes.
thought this is amazing, and I had to travel all the way to Mizoram and Manipur to see.
Yes.
So
That
that
must have
is
been
how.
so
So first,
different.
I
Yes.
started my journey from Machilipatnam, which was
Andhra
in
Pradesh.
Andhra
Oh,
Pradesh.
wow.
And then of course, Cochin, I knew. Uh, Western India, I know.
Yes.
Calcutta, I knew, but then Mizoram
Yes.
and Manipur were totally different. And language was a problem, everything. And I found connection through many sources, and they were very cooperative. And we have a very simple thing. Once we tell each other that I am Jewish,
The
we become
connect is instant. Huh.
instant, and we
So
image, and so they basically secret life, but immediately you say, okay, she's Jewish, so we'll tell her everything. So that is
yes,
how I
ma'am.
came to know about
Yes, ma'am. Oh
that
my
was.
God, I don't want to be running out of time without hearing so much more from you. So, why don't you tell us that each Jewish festival has a definite food item associated with it? And the festivals are based on an event from the Bible which took place.
Mhm,
And so it's more than 5,800 years of Jewish history to
mhm,
it. So there's
mhm.
some special food items with each festival, I believe.
Yes, like say, let me just tell you about Passover. Basically, that is
Yes, ma'am.
the Ten Commandments and the crossing of the sea.
Okay.
For that, we do a Passover seder. That's preparing a table with a platter. It
Okay.
has candles is light is basic to all our festivals. Uh,
Candles must be
first it
lit,
used to
of
be
course.
first it used to be oil lamps. Now it's candles,
Wow. Do
and
you have these oil lamps? Yeah, I'll talk about you if we get time about it.
yes,
Right
yes,
then.
we do use.
Yes.
That was the basic thing was oil lamps, but now candles have come
Okay.
in a
Then that's
larger way, like with a new life. And so, what we do, because when the Jews left Egypt, they
yes.
quickly, the women, they always think that we should feed the family, so they quickly
Yes.
rolled some flour into dough, put it in their
Mm.
baskets, and then ran and crossed the sea. So,
Wow.
so when we fill the platter with
Hmm.
all the elements of the earth by
Yes.
which we survived, so
Oh my
there
God.
is,
That is so,
so
I mean, it has so
yes,
much symbolism with it. Wow.
yes.
Yes.
So there is something about sacrifice. So there is
Yes.
a small piece of meat, and there is egg, boiled eggs, and there is salt water for the tears we shed.
Yes. Oh my
And
God. That is why
yes,
the salt water is kept. That is
yes, yes,
fascinating.
yeah, for
Totally.
the
All
tears we
right.
shed.
For the
and
tears you
uh,
shed.
and the green is when we went reached eventually homeland, and there was we grew, so I mean there, I mean food. And the most interesting thing that I find in this platter is we make kharoset, that is a date shira with dates,
Oh, the
because
shira which you
with
make with
dates,
dates. All
dates
right.
dates dates khajur, because
Kajur.
that is symbolic of the mortar that was used to build the pyramids when they were slaves in Egypt.
Oh, that's very, very interesting, ma'am.
Uh-huh.
Such an intriguing concept. So each
Yes,
food item on that platter
yes,
has a huge
yes,
history behind it.
yes. So
How would
so
we ever have
basically,
known? Yes.
yes. So
And what
basically, people
about
think that it's religious, it's a regional, but it's not. It is regional, but it all has a symbolism.
So, do you also feel a sense of loss when you see your ancient grinding stone go away because you shifted into an
Yes.
apartment where you couldn't
No,
fit it,
I
everything
mean,
was modern, and
yes.
tell me about, the importance of the synagogue, the artifacts which are depleting, or maybe they've gone back to Israel with families that have migrated. Tell me about this slipping away of culture, this a little sense of loss, which I'm sure you must be feeling.
Yes, I have basically I am involved in Ahmedabad for many years with the heritage.
Okay.
As you know, Ahmedabad is a heritage city, and I was part, sort of
Yes.
working with the group at that point when Ahmedabad became a heritage city. So I'm basically, and I'm trained as an artist. I teach at School of
Yes,
Architecture for
you
many
you
years.
did a
So
beautiful
I'm always,
illustration in the book.
yes,
Yes.
so I'm trained artist, so that's how. But heritage of architecture was one thing that is appears in Book of Rachel. There are many
Okay.
synagogues in India which are no longer, they are either not
Yes, and
taken
they were
care
from
of,
the
they're
mid
not.
16th
Yes,
century, I believe, the
yes,
really
yes,
old
and
ones,
they
right?
are very beautiful, and it's very difficult to take care of them because we are hardly 4,000. What can we do? So that is where the
Oh my God.
archaeological survey, we apply sometimes to the Archaeological Survey
Mhm.
of India, and that is taken care of in one way. The second
Yes,
was the heritage of food, and I thought that okay, that needs a book because there is no other way that we can talk about it. And
yes.
I am I it is not so, it is not so easy, it is not so easy
I
because
know.
for the younger people to get used to all the old ancient, so
I
still
believe
there
you
is
do have a little kind of a mini museum going in your synagogue in Ahmedabad. I
no,
read about
I
it
mean
somewhere. That's
we
great.
we
Yes,
have for most of us, we look after the synagogue very, where if we are even, we are 140, but we look after the synagogue very well. There are people who donate, and then we maintain.
yes.
We have beautiful chandeliers, it's very beautiful.
Wow.
Prayers are said every Friday, all the festivals are there. We decorate the synagogue, and there sometimes there are weddings, sometimes once in a while
This
there
is
is
a
a,
secret life I want to take a peek into someday. And I'm sure all our viewers are going to want to go into a synagogue
because
and hear the prayers chanted in Hebrew and see you all in your caps and your different things. I mean, I wouldn't have known at all, like all of us, how beautifully you blended over all
yes,
those thousands
yes,
of years
yes,
that you've lived
yes.
in India. I'm proud and honored to have interviewed you today and talked to you and heard you.
Thank
And
you,
I'm so sad that this has to be wrapped up. Let's do it again,
thank
ma'am.
you,
What a
thank
pleasure
you.
meeting you, Esther
Pleasure.
David.
Nice
Good
meeting
luck,
you,
and
Lily.
everybody go ahead and read all her wonderful books. Thank you, ma'am. God
Bye bye.
bless.